Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hey everyone, I'm Case Aiken. Now, you might know me from the Another Pass podcast, which I co-host with Sam Alisea, where we talk about movies that we find fascinating but flawed, or the Men of Steel podcast, which I co-host with J. Mike Folson, where we talk about Superman and Superman-adjacent properties. You might also know me as the editor for the Side Quest YouTube series that we post, doing animated versions of this series, as well as the Superman Analog series. Both of those you can find at the Certain POV Media YouTube page. Check those out. They're great. But that's not why I'm here today. Today, I am here to do an episode on Outland. Outland was developed by Housemarque, who most recently made Returnal, Nex Machina, and Matterfall. It was published by Ubisoft for the Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation 3 in 2011, and then published for Steam directly by Housemarque in 2014. I originally had it on 360, and I've been recently replaying it on my Xbox Series X. Now, the game can best be described as an action platformer. It focuses on a hero wielding a sword who can leap around from platform to platform, and I think it's fair to call this game a Metroidvania. It's definitely a more action-focused one, with exploration being a lesser priority in the game, but there is a decent amount of backtracking, particularly as you get new abilities to access new areas, and there are some secret items to find that will power up your character as you go, but definitely the focus is less on exploration and more on the combat and puzzle-solving elements of the game. Now, one of the big mechanics for the puzzle-solving aspect is the color changing of your character. After the initial few sections of the game, you gain the ability to channel either light or dark energy. And while you're channeling the power of light or darkness, you are invulnerable to whichever type you're channeling at the time, but vulnerable to the other one. And this gets into the big thing that I think makes this game worthwhile, and that it is gorgeous. Like, it's a beautiful game. And even today, it holds up very well because it has a very cool minimalist design. Your character and almost everyone in this game is mostly shown in silhouette with then energy accenting details about the characters. Combine that with the really cool representation of blue and red lights from the different types of energy, and you have this really visually appealing work that then is set in this very stylized kind of Mesoamerican sort of aesthetic. A lot of the game is exploring ruins of a past civilization, and as a result have kind of a design that looks sort of Mayan, Incan, Aztec, that whole blur of cultures that Americans have a really hard time with. And I have to admit, I'm kind of a sucker for multiple layers of parallax scrolling using shaded elements to create this very minimalist style. It feels like a very impressive, rich world, even though we're not actually given that much graphical detail. But frankly, it's a good thing that there aren't a lot of busy design elements going on in just the background or the character designs, because this game is hard. It is fair to call it a bullet hell because everything in this game is out to kill you, and they're all trying to do so with various types of energy projectiles that you have to either avoid or channel the right energy at the right time not to take damage. As a result, your reflexes are put to the test in every section of the game. You will be expected to constantly switch between the right energy types to attack or to negate damage, all while jumping from platform to platform. The challenge that the game puts before you is surviving the rooms that they put you in and solving the puzzles of how to navigate through these spaces. It's not so much about the exploration, getting back to that whole Metroidvania thing. For example, it's rare that you don't know where to go. While there is a map, the main way that the game drives you forward is through a sort of spirit of the wilderness kind of effect that they have. It's glowing leaves that are sort of like floating about. I feel like this is enough of a staple of fantasy settings in forested environments that I think you understand what I'm talking about. But what it looks like is it's a bunch of golden glowing leaves just sort of circling around. And when you move into areas, it then moves to where the next location for you to go is. And that might sound like it's holding your hand, which I guess it kind of is from the exploration side of things. But again, the challenge is not about finding the right room. It's figuring out how you're going to get through said room. On that note, the story is fairly bog simple. Most of it is told through mood, but you do get some flashbacks where you play as your past self. There's a reincarnation subplot going on in there where you get to experience being really powerful and dealing with this like great cataclysm far in the past. And there are some text screens as well, but for the most part, it's just, here's a mood, and you are the reincarnated champion, and you have to stop the end of the world. So while it's not the deepest game, it is both aesthetically and mechanically pleasing. It's a treat to look at, the music is atmospheric and solid, and the controls are really tight, and you really feel like you're being challenged to play the game. This was the era of the rise of indie games, where developers started to look back to more classic 2D style games and started putting out really polished renditions of them, rather than chasing the trends of 3D gaming that had dominated the medium for the past 2 cycles of consoles. And I have to keep emphasizing that it really does hold up. When I got my Xbox Series X and I saw that it was available for me to download, I figured I'd give it a shot just because I remembered liking it back in the day, and it's a really good time. I mean, it's not a perfect game, but what is? But if you're looking for an action platform game that you don't want to have to waste your time finding guides just to figure out where you want to go, and instead want to be challenged in the moment, this is a really solid one. Like I said, it's available on the Xbox and PlayStation networks as well as on Steam, so you should be able to check it out pretty easily. So thank you for giving me a couple minutes just to talk about a game that I liked when it came out. There was a lot of buzz then, but it's kind of died down, and when I saw it and picked it up again, I was like, hey, yeah, this is pretty good. So thanks for checking that out. Again, you can find me on Another Pass podcast or the Men of Steel podcast or on our YouTube channel where all the videos I have some kind of hand in. So I hope you check out some of that stuff and enjoy. And until then, happy gaming. Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.